Welcome back. If you made it through here, it means that we have installed everything that we need and we are now ready to combine the different components together in order to get the CI/CD pipeline that we dreamt of. So in this section, we're going to talk about how you can source control your database. And the checklist for this module, it's pretty straightforward. First, we're going to link the development database that we created to the repository that we just created in Azure Devops. We're going to create an initial commit as it is, just to have an initial baseline of the database. Then we're going to create a few changes within the database, things like creation of new columns, a new store procedure, and we're also going to introduce a little bit of a testing that will be beneficial for the CI part. Last but not least, we're going to commit this new package so that we have a development environment that is somehow one version ahead of the rest, and that will be the initial part for the CI/CD pipeline. So let's get into the virtual machine. All right, the virtual machine is back to where we left it. We have Azure DevOps. We have a project. This project has a repository that is already configured. So now we want to go back to SSMS and we want to link our Acme development environment to source control. To use that, we use SQL Source Control. So we can right-click on Dev, and we can just select Link Database to Source Control. Now we want to link to our source control system, the one we just installed. So hit Next. If you remember, we had the choice to choose between TFS or Git. We chose TFS, so that is fine. In order to configure TFS, we need essentially two main points. The server URL, and this is pretty handy because we can just go back to Chrome, get all the URL up to default collection, just copy it. Let me just go back and just paste it. And that will be fine. And if that worked, now if I hit browse, we should be able to see that we have a source repository, which is named Acme. We can select it. And down here, we can choose between a dedicated database and a shared database. I'm not going to deep dive on what are the differences. You have plenty of resources in the university, but for the time being, we just stick with the dedicated approach. I'll go ahead and link it. This should take just a few seconds. And when we're done with this, our development environment is ready to be version control. There you go. It's OK. Now, as I said, we want to make an initial commit just to make sure that everything works OK before we make any changes. So I go here in the Commit tab. And here, let me just remind next week. We have a bunch of new changes because, of course, everything is new. We have not pushed anything into the source control. So the initial commit can be something like from Pinocchio, hey, I am a real kid. There you go. And we can just push commit. Now, everything is committed. And if everything worked, we can go back to Azure DevOps. We can go to our repos, in our files. And here we go. We got everything we needed. So we got everything that was pushed in, assembles, data, tables. Let's take a look at one table, just for instance. And there you go. You have all the tables that we have. We have the commit point, hey, I'm a real kid. You got the history of this table. And so we're ready to roll. As we said, the first thing that we're going to do is going to work on Acme Dev and just change a few things on its schema. So let me just close everything here so we have a clean state. So first thing we want to do is let's create a new column. So we go here under DBO contacts, right-click, design. And here in the very bottom, I believe that we really need to know the Twitter handle of all our users. So just put it here. I will stick with this data type. That's fine. I will just hit save. Good. Second thing that we want to do is probably create a store procedure. So here we can take advantage of the snippets of code that are provided by SQL prompt. So we just go here and say CP, create procedure. Boom. And this can be something like get user details. And now we can just move on and say another snippet, select star from SSF, Boom, and here we can define, let's say, articles, A. Let's make it a join, contacts, C, on, C author ID. There you go. I mean, I created a join statement in no time. Here, as we know, static code analysis. The wildcard is a bad practice. I can hit tab, and boom, everything just pops up. It's sweet. Let me just get rid of a few tables here, a few columns here, sorry. Then, SQL properties also telling me that here we have defined the parameter, but we're not using it. We not really need it. That's fine. Last but not least, I suffer by OCD, so I mean, I just want to have things nice and clear. So format SQL, boom, everything is nice and clear. I can just execute this. And even in this case, we have created a sort procedure. Last thing that I would like to do, I would like to install a testing framework over our development environment, because ideally I would like to push a new version into source control, and I would like my CI step to take in consideration the fact that some tests needs to be run. Not going to be omni-comprehensive, we're just going to run a very easy test. To do that, we want to open up SQL test, and just remind that next week I'm going to install the latest and greatest version. Then we want to add the new database, which is going to be our development database. That's fine. And here we just need to acknowledge the fact there are some prerequisites we're happy with. I'm not going to install the SQL cop static analysis tests, even though I'm just going to copycat one of them, to be fast and easy. So now the testing framework, it's been installed. It's essentially a collection of stored procedures. Now let's create a new test. So I select the database, hit on plus, and this test name is tables, without primary key, and test class is unit tests. You can choose pretty much anything you want. So now I'm requested to create the code for the test. So let me just get rid of everything between begin and end. If you remember, in our folder cool stuff, we had this test snippet. I had been mysterious about that. It's the time for truth. This is essentially what this test snippet will be all about. So we can take essentially everything from here to here, and boom, here we go. Again, we want to format the SQL statement, boom. Let me make sure that I don't repeat. Okay, that should work pretty okay. Let's just go execute. Fine. So back to SQL test. Now we should have a new test running up. And as you can see, the test is failing, and it's telling me that over the development database that I created, there is one table that doesn't have a primary key. So let's fix it. The table is called article purchases. I go here, tables, article purchases. Let's go for design, and let's pick just whatever column. Let's take purchase ID and set it as a primary key. That is done. Let's go back to SQL test. Let's run the test again, and like this. All right, so let me just refresh, just make sure that run it. Oops. Oh yeah, I see what I did. I forgot to save. That's the point. There you go. So let me just save it. Boom. And now we can go back to SQL test. We can go here, run the test. It checked. Very nice. So we have manipulated a couple of tables. We created a sort procedure. We created a test. We are now ready to commit something new to our source control. What we can do is right-click, just hit commit changes to source control. Here we go. All right. It's now determining all the changes that need to be done, and we expect a bunch of them, because we have things like the tables and the stored procedure that we created, but also all the stored procedures related to the Honor T-SQL-T, which is the testing framework. So here we can just have a meaningful commit message like added a bunch of cool stuff. There you go. We can select all the changes. We can commit them. Now it's coming up, and if everything worked okay, getting back to Azure DevOps, let me just refresh the files. And if we go for under tables, you see, we have a number of them which, hey, had a bunch of cool stuff. And article purchases, we can take a look at the history. You can see there have been 2 commit points that essentially insisted on this very same object on the schema. And we can see that now we have the primary key installed. So that would be it for source controlling. In the next section, we're going to talk about the CI part.